Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Swami Maharaj Jai
Jai.
Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Jai. Well, it's an honor for me to be here, honor and a joy to be here with all of you, to have this opportunity to share something on the higher topics of life. And you're all very auspicious, pious, spiritually minded persons. And these topics are not unfamiliar to you. So I feel it is an honor to be here with all of you today. And this process of chanting, of kirtan, it is, I was reflecting now as we were chanting, it is really an extraordinary thing, that we are finite beings, we are limited in every way, and yet in this moment we have the opportunity to connect with the infinite, to connect with divinity in its highest expression. It is a most extraordinary thing. We cannot think that we are able to approach the infinite because we are limited. But our hope is that the infinite, having infinite capacity, can reveal itself to us. And this was one way that our grandfather, Guru Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami, he described our situation, or our hope, our prospect. There was one occasion he was attending, this is like in the, let's see, when was it, like 1940s, something like that. And he was attending some type of conference, and there were many speakers representing different schools of thought. They were all giving some presentation. And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our guru, he spoke something, he gave some lecture. And then at the end, somebody challenged him and told him, we are very finite beings. How can we think that we're able to really conceive of the infinite or have some type of relationship with the infinite? Because we're finite. How is it possible? And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he responded in a very brilliant way, very quick, and he said, you're right, actually, it is true. We the finite, it's not possible for us to know anything of the infinite. However, we have to consider the other side of things, that if the infinite is really infinite, then he must have some way of making himself known to the finite. If he's infinite, then he has infinite means at his disposal. So he will have some way of revealing himself, allowing us to have some experience of him. And so the basis of our spiritual practice, this is like the premise of what we're doing. That we cannot approach that, but that can make itself known to us. So, in everything that we're doing, we're trying to move in this type of spirit, of attracting the grace of divinity. It's not that we have any right over divinity. It is not that the Supreme Absolute is under any obligation to give something to us. He's not bound by anything like that. But if he is moved by love, by mercy, by affection, then anything is possible. Then we, the finite, can have everything at our disposal through that link of love, and affection. Love is actually the greatest power in existence, the greatest force. Sridhar Maharaj, he comments in one place that consciously or unconsciously, the highest position is held by love. We may not always be consciously aware of the power of that force, but it is an undeniable force that exists in this world, and it can cause the most dramatic things to take place, the most unexpected things to take place, the most unexpected alliances to take place, just through that link of love and affection. We tend to get distracted by the pull of so many things in this world. You know, the attraction of wealth, the attraction of power in all its different forms, the attraction of fame, you know, the attraction of control, so on and so forth. So many things that pull our attention, and you know, the attraction of knowledge, having great knowledge at one's disposal. All of these things, they pull us, you know, in different ways. But actually, the most powerful force is love. And love is something that can dispossess us of any other desire. Love is such a force that it can bring us to our knees, that it can cause us to reject every other proposal of this world. That is the power of love. And it, you know, just as like a very you know, universal example anyone can appreciate, if we look at the relationship between parents and their children, you know, or just, let's say, children in general, you know, they because of their charm, you know, because of their love, their affection, you know, they can move, you know, the most sober people to do the most ridiculous things. You could have someone who's the ruler of a nation, you know, they snap their finger and 50 people jump to follow their orders. But when they go home at the end of the day, they may have a 2-year-old child who just makes one look and has them crawling on their knees. You know? It's the truth, you know. This is the power of love and affection. So this is really what we find to be the most compelling thing about the Krishna conception of divinity. You know, this has been presented at the very conclusion of the Vedic instruction. The Vedas, they present many different ideals of life. You know, it is like we can say in the Vedas, a very broad net is being cast. You know, and so that anyone of any inclination, of any tendency, even worldly tendency, they'll be attracted to you know, to take a step on the ladder of spiritual life. You know. So many different ideals and conceptions are presented there. Many different paths are presented there. In general, we can see that there are 3 lines of thought that are presented in the Vedas. You know, there is what is sometimes called the Karma Kanda section, and that is for persons who are very fixed upon the experience of this world. They identify very strongly with the experience of this worldly plane, and they're not ready to conceive of anything much beyond that. You know, they're very attracted to all the proposals of this worldly plane of existence. So, you know, whether that's, you know, making more money, having some form of control. In general, we can say like living an enjoyable life in this world. You know, persons who are attracted by having a happy, enjoyable experience of this world. You know. So for those persons, there are many recommendations that are given, you know, so as to, you know, like enjoy yourself in this world and also minimize the karmic reactions that you have to deal with as a result of that. Minimize the any sin that you may acquire as a result of your exploitation. So, you know, there's particular mantras, particular types of worship, so on and so forth, different types of rituals, sacrifices that are prescribed, so that let's say, you know, the enjoyment that we're seeking is regulated. It's not just like all out, you know, all out, you know, personal selfish enjoyment. But there's some check, there's some type of control, there's some adjustment, there's some harmony. You know, you can even find within the Vedas some allowance for eating particular types of meat. You know, at this particular time, offered in this particular way, with this particular mantra, to this particular god, deva, like that, So, because otherwise, persons at a very gross level of consciousness, if you just come out and tell them, no, 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 then they're just going to completely reject the whole thing. So there's some allowance, there's some accommodation. You like to drink alcohol, then, in this particular way, at this particular time, and offered in this way, like that, So there's some accommodation for persons at a more gross level of consciousness. So that is one line of instruction that you find in the Vedas. And then on a higher level, there is, we can say, what is catering to those who have more of an attraction towards liberation, towards moksha, to a more sober class of persons who realize that, any enjoyment in this world, it's temporary. There will be some reaction that you have to face to it, some karmic reaction. And, most importantly, it's the enjoyment of that we experience in this world. It's only pertaining to our physical body, to our mind, to our intellect. And that's not really who we are. That's just dealing with the cover of things. Why should I seek out pleasure of the body when I'm not this body? I'm actually soul. I'm Atma. So, there's no foundation here. There's no sense here. And by seeking the enjoyment of this world, I'm just perpetuating this whole cycle of birth and death within this gross physical worldly plane. But I can understand, through the teachings coming from a higher plane, that I'm actually a spirit soul, and as I am spirit, so there is a world of spirit. And that's an eternal world. That's a permanent world. And I can attain some lasting satisfaction, some lasting joy in that plane. So why should I waste my time with the frivolous temptations of this world when there's this higher, eternal, permanent plane of satisfaction that is waiting for me, that exists for me? So rather than wasting my time with the pleasures of this world, I should try to, in a serious way, attempt to become detached. Rather than, encouraging these tendencies we have for enjoyment, I should try to become free from them. And I should try to realize the true self within. So this is another line of instruction that we find within the Vedas. So the Vedanta Sutra, the penultimate work that Vedavyas presented when he was compiling all the Vedic knowledge, the Vedanta Sutra was his penultimate work. And that begins with this line, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which means, now search after spirits. Now you've finished with your course of material enjoyment. Now search after spirits. Now that chapter's closed. Now come to seek after something higher. So that is another line. But then there is also a third line of thought. And this is the harmonizer. And this is the line of bhakti. And that, from that perspective of the bhakti school, both these tendencies for exploitation or personal enjoyment and the tendency for renunciation, liberation, they're actually like two sides of the same coin. And ultimately neither will give us permanent, lasting satisfaction. And why? Why is that? Because both of these tendencies are based on consideration of our individual interest. That's the problem. This is the problem with both of these lines of thought. That I want to exploit this environment for my personal enjoyment. Oh, but exploiting the environment, that just gets me in trouble. Therefore, I want to renounce the environment. And I want to dive within the self. Both of these are based upon individual interest, upon the conception of individual interest. So it's not a complete solution. Rather, we have to, the complete solution will be when we consider our position within the whole. We will reach the complete solution when we understand what is the real nature of the whole, first of all. What is the real nature of the whole? And what is my place within that whole? That is when we can arrive at a permanent solution. That will be the final destination. Our existence, should be in consideration, the way that we carry on our existence, it should be in consideration of the existence of others. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and the nature of that whole, it will have to be surrounding an absolute center. That will be the harmonizing factor. An absolute center which can engage, which can satisfy so many individual entities. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj has this wonderful expression that we are members of an organic whole. We can conceive of an organic whole. And by organic I mean composed of so many individual organisms that are harmoniously working together. So if we look at any system that has not been destroyed by humankind, if we look at the way that our bodies work, if we look at the way that ecosystems work, they work on the basis of an organic whole. That by which I mean there are individual entities, individual organisms that are working together in the interest of the whole. If we look at the way that our body works, that every organ of our body, every cell of our body, every function of our body is working in the interest of the health of the body as a whole entity. If one cell or one organism decides to try to monopolize resources at the expense of others, take more nutrients, take more blood supply, so on and so forth, then there's problems, then there's trouble, then there's disease. Similarly, if any organ or function or cell decides to stop working, to renounce their duty, then there's also trouble. But if every entity is selflessly working if every organ is selflessly working for the good of the whole, then everything's harmony, then you're in perfect health. So it's actually, this is like, we were talking about this word, axiomatic. This is an axiomatic truth. This is an undeniable truth that we see within existence in the way that so many things are running. If everyone is in this harmonious, cooperative spirit, acting in the interest of the whole, then there's perfect, harmony, there's peace, there's no problem. So both to exploit as well as to renounce are both unnatural. But to be properly engaged in one's natural function, this is what we consider to be the highest truth. So then what is the nature of that whole? That is the question then. What is, and this is what in Sanskrit what we call sambandha gyan, means knowing what is what, who is who am I, what is the real nature of the environment. This is what is called sambandha gyan. So this is the first question. Who am I actually? What is the real nature of existence, and what role do I have to play within that existence? And so, according to the Bhakti school, and at many points we meet in these other lines of thought that I've described, but according to our perspective, our understanding, we, first of all, yes, we are soul, we are spirit. And there is a plane of spirit, and that is our true home. However, it is not only that there is a non-differentiated plane of spirit. It is not just that there is like a flat sheet of consciousness in which we will just exist in this state, this static condition of peace and joy. But no, rather, as we experience in this world the need for dynamic movement, the need for love, the need for emotion, the need for attachments, for relationships, all of these things. So, as we experience that in this world, so there exists a spiritual counterpart of that. And the only problem with the way that these desires and tendencies are expressed in this world, the only problem with that in this world is that they are based upon our individual interest. Or it may be on the basis of an extended individual interest. Okay, maybe it's not about me, but it's about my family, or my neighborhood, or my country, or this particular interest, or this particular cause. So we may think of ourselves as being selfless, but if we think about it, many of these things, it's individual interest, but in an extended way. So it's normal and it's healthy and it's natural to have these tendencies, but they must be directed towards the interest of the absolute whole. They must be directed towards the universal interest. No provincialism. Must be directed towards the absolute. And in that way, all of these tendencies that we have, they can be very beautifully expressed in harmony with others. And there are some very nice examples that are given. In terms of how our energy can be distributed to the whole. The Vedas give a very nice example. Yatha taror mula nishayachanena tripyanti yat skanda bhujopa shakaha pranopaharak chaya tenjiyanam tataiva savarhanam achute ja. That it gives the example of a tree. That if you go to water, if you need to give water to a tree, if a tree is thirsty, then you give the water to the root of the tree. And from the root, that water will be evenly distributed to all the other parts of the tree. You won't go to water the branches or the flowers or the fruits or the leaves, but if you do that, your endeavor will be futile. So give your energy to the center, give your energy to the root, and from there it will spread to the whole. And also it is mentioned there that if you need to nourish your body, then you give the food to your stomach through your mouth. You won't put food to your ear, to your eye, or to any other part of your body. But through this root, the energy, the nutrients, they can be spread to all the parts of the body. So this idea is given to show that if we can run after A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so many different causes, in giving our energy in a scattered way, but so many other parts will be neglected. But if we can give our energy to the center, to the root of the infinite, then from there our energy can be distributed to all. And then on this point of existing in harmony with all the other parts of the whole, in relation to this absolute center, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has given this very nice example of a musical orchestra and a conductor. There are so many different instruments are being played. There's so many different vibrations that are coming, so many different sounds, so many different musicians, but they're all attuned to this central person, to the conductor. And because of that, there's harmony. It's not that there's a cacophony, some awkward sound that's coming out, but all of this difference is being wonderfully harmonized, and beautiful sound is coming from that. So in the same way, this is how we are told the third plane of life, what we can conceive of as the third plane of life. There's the plane of exploitation, individual individual interest. That's what we experience in this world. one individual interest against another individual interest against another individual interest, and what do you have? You have chaos. So there's the plane of individual interest, and then there's the plane of renunciation of any interest, a neutral plane. But then we can conceive of a third plane of life, the positive plane. So we can think of minus, 0, and plus. So this is the nature of that positive plane of existence, of that spiritual dynamic plane. So many individual entities are harmoniously acting together in the interest of the supreme entity. And so there's perfect harmony. And what is the nature of that supreme entity? Must be love, because that is our intrinsic need. So this is the charm of the Krishna conception of divinity. That all of these needs that we feel now in our heart, they can be met in connection with that wonderful, wonderful supreme being. Our line of teachers, when they go to assess what is the value of a theological system, they will look at it in terms of how much joy of the heart it can provide. How much inner satisfaction of the heart it can give. How much we have this word in Sanskrit. It is you can't really translate in English, but rasa. This is a very helpful word. Many of you you already know that word. But rasa, it means the taste in life, the juice in life that we are seeking in everything that we do. In a cup of water that you drink, in a coffee that you drink, or in some food, in some pizza that you eat, or in a movie that you watch, a mountain you go to climb, in the particular relationships that you have, with the mother, with the father, with the son, with the daughter, with the lover, with the husband, with the wife, with your teacher, with your neighbor, with your coworker, with your boss. There's some unique rasa, some unique taste, some unique flavor in all of these things. And this is the spice of life, right? Variety is the spice of life. So this is actually what we are seeking in everything that we do. We're seeking some particular sensation, some particular type of experience. That's actually what we're seeking in everything that we do. And so our line of teachers, our gurus, they grade the value of a particular conception of divinity on the basis of how much of this rasa can it give us. How much, of that juice can it give you? How much that inner satisfaction of the heart, that thing that you're actually seeking, how much of that can it give you? And so in the Krishna conception of divinity, we find what our gurus have described as full-fledged theism, a fully developed theism, in the sense that it can completely satisfy every hankering that we can have. Here we are being presented with the prospect that the absolute entity, the supreme divinity, can enter into an intimate relationship with us. Just like we have an intimate connection with family members, with friends, with lovers, so on and so forth. So we can have that type of relationship with the Supreme, with the Absolute. This is what's being presented in the Krishna conception of divinity. And so from that perspective, it is considered to be the highest, the most developed. You're welcome to sit in a chair. Would you like a chair?
Oh, I'm okay. I'll just
Okay.
There we go. It's okay.
We're not yogis today. Tomorrow the yoga classes will start. Today's Sundays. And the basis of the expression of this spirit of service, the spirit of contribution, the spirit of dedication. This is like the dominant mood within the plane of divinity. And that's part of the harmony of everything. That everyone is in this mode of giving, of contribution. There's not the mode of taking for oneself, but everyone is moving in this mood of supplying to others. And so in that type of environment, there's automatic, bounty. There's more than enough for everyone. Everyone is getting more than they need in terms of, resources, in terms of their, heart's desires. There's more than enough for everyone. Srila Sridhar Maharshi, we have one book called Home Comfort, and Srila Sridhar Maharshi talks about this idea of home. That he says, just this word home, that is enough to attract our hearts. Just hearing that word home. And then he says, and what is home? Home is that place where we don't have to think about our own interest. Home is that place where everyone there is thinking about our welfare more than we could think about our own welfare. That is what a real experience of home is. Mothers, fathers, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, they care about us, and they're doing for us more than we could care for us or do for us. That's what a real home environment is. And so that is the nature of that plane, that positive plane of divinity, where one doesn't have to think about their own interest. One doesn't need to have their retirement plan or their savings or whatever, or to calculate this, calculate that. Everyone's automatically moving in this spirit of giving to others, and so everyone has more than enough. Everyone is more than cared for. And so in the relationship of the members of that plane with the Supreme Person of Krishna, that expression of giving, of contribution, it is particularly based on the power of attraction that Krishna has. If we think of, however one may think of the absolute, of the highest divinity, if one were to encounter that now, the immediate feeling would be some awe, some reverence, there would be some feeling of veneration towards that. But what is so particularly wonderful in the Krishna conception of divinity is that all of that feeling is completely absent. And one only has the consciousness that there's this most wonderful, charming, beautiful, and loving person. And in a very automatic way, I want to approach that entity, and I want to give something to that entity. I want to love that entity. I want to have some relationship with that entity. Not based on any consciousness that this is the supreme divinity, this is God, this is the absolute, or anything like that, but simply that this is the most wonderful, most beautiful being that I've ever encountered in my life, and I really want to have a relationship, and I want to give something as an expression of my love and appreciation. So I'm speaking maybe in a very abstract way. If anyone has any particular question or anything like that would be nice. Comment or anything at all from anybody. Or would you like to add anything, Alison?
No, it's good.
Love thy neighbour as thyself. Yeah. carefully as you treat yourself.
Are you comfortable, Elias? Are you okay there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Would you say that you ascribe to any of those three forms of thought that you described earlier, like renunciation or?
I think we all have these tendencies within us. These tendencies are moving throughout us all the time, you know. I mean, just as like a simple example, you eat a big meal or let's say you eat something really rich, like a pizza, and you eat too much, and then you're like, oh man, I'm fasting now. I'm going on a diet. Today I just want to eat salad, you know. Or I don't want to eat anything, you know. So like in this way, these tendencies are playing throughout us all the time, you know. The spirit of consumption, of exploitation, of enjoyment on one side, and then on the other side, the tendency to withdraw, you know. And then on the other hand, we also have that tendency playing within us to give, to contribute, to care for others. So to one extent or another, we all have these tendencies within us. You know, some of us may be more concentrated. We may have one tendency more concentrated within us than others. But we all have them. You know, we can't avoid them. But what I'm saying is that we consider the ideal to be this third plane of existence, this third option, to live in the spirit of contribution to the whole, and in particular to the center. That's what we are moving towards. You know, that's what we're trying to live in, that type of spirit. But you know, at the present moment, we're dealing with all these other things going on. You know, because we're in like this very awkward condition of life, where we've been ascribing to this idea that we exist for ourselves, we exist for number one. And now we're like realizing, oh, actually, that doesn't really work. And there's more to life than that. And I'm not just this body, but I'm actually an eternal spiritual being. And I want to realize that, and I want to connect with that truth. And I want to connect with the truth of not just, you know, my spirituality, but the existence of a higher spirituality. So we're like just in like this mixed state right now. No, we're, you know, since time immemorial we can conceive, we've been identifying with the needs of this body, with the pull of our senses, with the pull of our mind, with the pull of our, you know, the intellectual plane. We've been pulled by these things. We've been identifying with these planes, and now we're like, and then also on the most subtle level, the plane of ego, the plane of ahankar, the false sense of self. And so, like, since time immemorial, we've been buying into what these aspects of ourselves tell us, and now we're like, hang on, who am I actually? You know, and I'm not going to listen to you anymore. So, you know, it's going to be a tricky process. It's going to take some time. You know, it's not going to be overnight. And you know, the starting point is just having some clarity. You know, what you know, many people call mindfulness. You know, nowadays, to just like recognize all these tendencies playing within us, and to understand, you know, there's a distinction. To recognize there's a distinction between who I am and what that whole thing is. You know, that's not me. This is something playing within my consciousness. So, you know, we're on a journey, we can say. You know. And we're not expecting it to be a, you know, one-stop journey. We're expecting it to be a long ride.
Can we serve the whole before? How do we know that we're serving the whole? Like our sort of ego-centered being can't really conceive whether we're serving the whole or we're
Yeah.
just serving something we conceive as the whole. So therefore, do we need to serve the centre and trust if we're serving the centre, we would then be guided to serve the whole? Or do you need to purify it to a point where, you know, the ego no longer clouds that discrimination, whether you're serving the whole or just your concept of the whole?
Yeah. Well, you see, this is the beauty of the Bhakti school, that you know, you don't have to do like something separate first, but you simply try to engage in in acts of devotion towards the center, and you know, we in particular worshipping Lord Krishna, that we try to awaken the mood of devotion, try to offer ourselves in a spirit of devotion to that, you know, Supreme Lord, and through that everything will be covered. So like if we look at the Vedic system, there's two ways of going about this that are described. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, which is like a microcosm of the Vedic conceptions, then there's some development there. And the first thing that's described is karma yoga, you know, which is about becoming what you've described, becoming free of the false ego, becoming free of our individual interest, and engaging in selfless action. This is the first teaching of Bhagavad Gita, or the first path. The first teaching is that you are soul, you are not the body, but the first path that's described in Bhagavad Gita is karma yoga, and that means just to act in a like generally speaking throughout, you know, whatever you conceive to be your duty. You know, everyone has particular duties in life, you know, whether it's, you know, as a mother, a father, a teacher, a bus driver, or whatever it may be. You know, everyone has their particular allotted duties. And by duty, I mean something that's making a positive contribution to the environment. So you perform those duties, but do it in a selfless spirit, and that will automatically purify you of your false ego. That will bring you to the plane of soul, because normally what we're doing is we're feeding into our individual interest. You know, our mind wants this, you know, our body wants that, and this person doesn't like me, so I'm not going to like them. You know, all of these things, you know, we're like feeding into these tendencies. We're reacting on all these things, and we're perpetuating these tendencies within us, and so we're viewing the environment through these filters. You know, this is good for me, this is not good for me. This supports my interest, this doesn't support my interest. Right? But if we like give up that whole mood of calculation on the basis of individual interest, then we'll become purified. When we start reacting on the basis of our individual interest, our individual ego, then we'll become purified. We'll become free of that whole plane of ego, mind, etc. And the soul within us will become brighter. We'll begin to feel the existence of soul within us more. So that's one way of going about this. And then from that point, in this more purified state, one will be qualified to enter more deeply into their cultivation of their spiritual knowledge, of realizing their spiritual identity. So that's one way of going about it. But then in the progression of Gita, from that position of spiritual knowledge, then bhakti, actually connecting in a spirit of devotion with the Absolute and realizing the personal nature of the Absolute, that is a higher plane of realization. So this is like one line of progression that's presented in Bhagavad Gita. But then another more simple and more direct line is just to wherever you are, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are, just begin trying to offer yourself to the Absolute in a spirit of devotion. And in that more direct method, you'll automatically cross over the other stages. That purification of the self, that will automatically take place. Krishna, as he expresses in Bhagavad Gita, Yat Kuroshi, Yat Ashnashi, Yat Juhosi Dadasi, Yat Tapasyasi Kunteya, Tat Kudushram and Arpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away in charity, whatever type of sacrifice you perform, do it all as an offering to me. Just try to add me. Just try to live in consciousness of your connection with your loving Lord. Try to live in a spirit of offering to your loving Lord. And in that simple and direct process, then all these other things, purification of our material tendencies, realization of ourself as soul, they'll be achieved without even having to think about them. So that's the process that we're trying to engage in, of consciously, realizing the connection, the relationship that we have with divinity in its personal feature, and then trying to make our lives as an offering. Make everything that we do an offering in the interest of that, beautiful, loving cause. Does that make sense?
Mm.
And so, if we're just gonna give some simple, practical examples, what we're going to eat, we'll offer that, offer that first, and then we'll take that. If someone's living a family life, then not that you have to give up a particular lifestyle or mode of living, but in your work, in your family life, you're not thinking, oh, this is my wife, or this is my husband, these are my children, this is my money, this is my house, this is my position, or whatever. I'm just a servant. I exist as a dedicating agent within the whole. And at the moment, these things are actually in my care. These resources or these persons, they're in my care. But really, I and all of these things, they exist for the satisfaction of our loving Lord. And if the opportunity arises, then they will be used, these resources or whatever, they will be used in the interest. Directly or indirectly, they'll be used in the interest of that higher cause. I'm moving through all my activities in that spirit of trying to offer to that higher cause. Anyone else have any comment or question or anything? Subhaji, do you want to share anything with us? as a mother and a school teacher and a bhakta devotee.
Is the Mahamantra a part of that dispensation for cultivating that mood of devotion or service?
Please elaborate.
No, I'm asking as a question.
Really. No, really, please. That's a very nice point. Please. I'm tired of listening to my own voice.
Shouldn't have said anything.
You just play the drum and sing, we love it.
Perhaps could I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking when you were sharing that, so kind of what underpins this is to have a personal relationship with Krishna. How do we do that? How does one cultivate that? First you have devotion and then that arises, or do you need to cultivate that another way, like Maha Mantra? Or?
I think a lot of it comes down to, stages of realisation, really. Like, to even, from one point of view, to even be in this room right now, is an indication of your willingness and development as a soul to want to inquire further and to want to seek higher understanding or a connection or a relationship. So for me, I always bring it back to the now, like where am I now? What am I doing? And I think we kind of have these answers already in ourselves. And I think through that process of wanting to know, things become revealed, and so in a sense, in a general sense, not so much focusing on the here and now, but in a general sense, I think as we become more conscious of that need or that desire, things happen in our lives and they come to us. And the Maha Mantra, I think is one of those agents, that come to us. And they come to us not just as some, sound from the heavens, but actually they come to us through people, just like you'd be introduced to a new band or a book or, a new type of food or something. It wouldn't just sort of be there on the road or, appear, but somebody and you have a relationship with, or whom you trust, or, or you're interested in, or there's some sort of feeling in you that, this person seems to know something about this, and you would, and that's how it kind of comes to you, You have a friend and they tell you, oh, have you listened to this music, and you haven't, and, you go home or they share it with you, and, in this way. So I think the Maha Mantra is one of those agents, but it comes through, the people who are already familiar with that or have already come into contact with that, and they themselves have been introduced and they're then sharing that. So I think, this is a really good point. Like, your question is a very good question, originally. What you were saying before is, we can have these general ideas of the different paths or the different types of orientating ourselves, but how to practically, and simply, lead that life. I think it comes to a specific point, it's not just, it gets less and less general, it becomes more and more specific. And I think in terms of Bhakti Yoga, and the Maha Mantra as a sound vibration, it's our, it really is our central kind of point, of access. It gives everything, actually. And it's through that then we gain the association of the devotees or the Vaishnavas and Guru, and then it's sort of like it comes from an expansive general thing to a point, and then it goes back out, into the more connections, relationships within that devotional sphere. So I think, the Maha Mantra is really a critical point. It's the finite and the infinite, it's the sound and everything that comes with that.
Well done.
That's well there.
Sure.
And we can also add that we place a lot of importance on the connection with the guru, with the teacher, with the guide, and also with other more experienced practitioners, the Vaishnavas, the devotees. Because yes, it is true, Krishna's, if we're realistic, God is very far away from us. We can't, it would be fantasy for us to presume that we're going to enter into a close relationship right away. I mean, there are people who do that, but we consider that to be, very unrealistic. So therefore we do place a lot of importance on the connection of Guru, who we consider Guru to be the representation of divinity. That, Krishna, God, is appearing to me in the form of this person, the Guru. And that will have like a real experience of divinity in that way, with that tangible connection, as Prabhu said, with the person before us.
Yeah, Keval Bhakti.
So yeah, and another point is that it's one thing to have a direct relationship with God, but another to have like to have a close relationship with someone who's already close to God. That's like entering into the family. I mean, if we just think of as a worldly example, some famous person, say the Queen of England, you could send her a letter directly to try to enter into some relationship. And okay, maybe she'll send you some polite response, and then there's some relationship there, and you're following her in the newspapers, and you feel there's some relationship, and no doubt there is. But let's say you have a good friend who's like part of the personal entourage, or you have a good friend who's a relative of the Queen of England. If you could enter through that route, like someone who's already close, who's already dear, and they come and introduce you, you're already going to be accepted in a very intimate way. So in the same way, if we are accepted by an agent of divinity, a guru, who already has a substantial connection with God, then it's like we're in. So we do put a lot of emphasis on that. I mean, like in our daily practice, our main focus is the offering of devotion to our Guru, and like through Guru it's going to Krishna. Our Gurudev has given a very nice example of a telescope. That our line of gurus is like a telescope that has so many lenses that are making what's very far away accessible and close. Normally, if you put something in front of your vision, you'll think that it's obstructing. But in the case of these particular lenses, they're actually so many lenses. They're actually enhancing your vision. And so in the same way, it's not that connecting through a guru or a line of gurus is giving you more of a remote relationship with divinity, but it's actually bringing it closer. So that is, a big part of our practice. Is that satisfying? Anything else?
No, I mean, they're just very... it gets to this point, I think, where they're difficult concepts, because we are so predicated towards self-interest and wanting to, to protect our own, or to seek, our own comfort, and sort of the concept of our real wealth and our real benefit and our real comfort coming from a more expansive mood of giving and considering the whole. I think in general, when it comes to the practical and the realistic manifestation of that for us in this world, as being things like connecting with a guru or a teacher or a group of people that can foster that or are trying to do that. It sort of is difficult in the Western world because we don't have that culture. So I always feel like a little bit like on tenterhooks, when talking about these things, because I'm like, I don't know, like how, but I can only speak from my personal experience that, it's it's a beautiful, it's a sweet surrender. Like when you can overcome that and see that and have that confirmed and and affirmed in so many different ways. You know, it's like that sense just, you know, dissipates. You know, and you can see the beauty in the surrender to the idea of, you know, giving up one's ego for either instruction or for service or for, you know, seeking greater harmony.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last thing from anyone, or should we conclude there? Okay. Well, maybe you can lead us in a little chanting to finish.
What would you like?
Well, maybe Mahamantra.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the easiest.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna